Every year, the world watches a short walk in the winter air as if it were a moving postcard from another era. On Christmas Day at Sandringham, the royal family steps out from the estate and heads towards St Mary Magdalene Church, surrounded by hedges, gravel paths, and the quiet rhythm of tradition. It looks simple: coats, gloves, smiles, a few greetings, but it carries decades of meaning. This walk is not just a holiday routine. It is a symbol of continuity, a public ritual that says, time moves forward, but some promises remain. The crowd gathers early, standing behind barriers with cameras raised, hoping for a nod, a handshake, a glimpse of history walking past at human speed. The royals move carefully, balancing warmth with formality, closeness with distance. In a modern world that changes by the hour, a tradition that repeats itself becomes a kind of anchor. And yet, each year is different because the people inside the tradition are different. Faces age, roles shift, new generations step closer to the front. The story is always the same, and never the same. This is why a moment that lasts only minutes can feel so unforgettable. And this year, one figure quietly steals attention, not through drama or scandal, but through transformation: Lady Louise. She appears not as a child in the background, but as a young woman with calm posture and steady confidence. For those who remember earlier years, brief appearances, shy smiles, this feels like a turning of a page. The walk becomes a mirror, reflecting how families change, how duties are inherited, and how identity forms under the weight of a famous name. Sandringham is more than a location, it is a stage where tradition meets growth. And in that meeting, we find the real story, not the spectacle, but the human journey inside the spectacle. To understand why Lady Louise's presence feels so powerful, you have to understand what she represents inside the family tree. She is the daughter of Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, figures known less for noise and more for steady service. Louise grew up near the edge of the spotlight, close enough to be recognized, far enough to choose quietness. She is also the youngest niece of King Charles III and a granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, names that shaped a century of royal identity. That lineage can sound like a fairy tale, but in real life it comes with pressure, expectations without a job description, public attention without consent, and headlines that can turn a normal day into a story. When Louise appears on the Christmas walk, she brings all of that history with her, but she does not wear it like armor. She wears it like responsibility, lightly, carefully, almost privately. That is why viewers respond to her transformation. It is not about fashion alone. It is the visible moment when someone who has been watched since childhood chooses how to be seen as an adult. Her mother, Sophie, walks nearby with a calm, practiced warmth, the kind of presence that says, "You can do this without losing yourself." Her father, Edward, carries the quiet discipline of a supporting role, reminding us that monarchy is not only made of kings and heirs, but also of those who hold the structure steady behind them. Together, they show a version of royal life that feels less like celebrity and more like duty. And then there is the crowd, hundreds of people who travel, wait and wave. In that exchange, Louise becomes a bridge between generations. She carries memories of a late queen's traditions, while standing in the present of a new reign. The walk turns into a lesson. Continuity is not automatic. It is built, step by step, by people willing to show up, to be polite, to be consistent, and to grow in public without asking the public to forgive everything. Lady Louise is not the headline of a constitution, but she might be the feeling of stability people are searching for when everything else feels loud. But the Christmas walk is not only about one person. It is a carefully photographed family moment where every step carries symbolism, whether intended or not. At the front, the king and queen lead, a reminder that the institution continues, even as it adapts to public scrutiny and private realities. Behind them, the Prince and Princess of Wales walk with their children, offering a picture of the future, not a distant concept, but actual faces growing taller each year. Nearby are relatives who represent experience and endurance, princess and cousins, spouses, each adding another thread to the tapestry. And in the middle of all this, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh often appear like a steady heartbeat. People sometimes forget that a monarchy survives not only through grand ceremonies, but through repetitive, ordinary discipline. Showing up on time, being prepared, meeting the public with patience. That is what makes this walk so strangely compelling. It looks casual, but it is actually controlled access, an event designed to feel personal while remaining safe, predictable, and dignified. The crowd offers gifts, small flowers, handshakes. The royals offer smiles, brief words, and the feeling that the distance between palace and street can shrink for a moment. For many onlookers, this is not politics. It is emotional heritage. It is the comfort of seeing something familiar survive. And yet, familiarity is fragile. That is why a grown-up Lady Louise resonates. She suggests the tradition is still recruiting new meaning. The walk becomes a storyline of renewal, how young adults step into public life without losing their private self. It also shows the power of imagery. A simple coat, a composed expression, a confident posture can become a headline about change, even when the person is simply living their life. In that sense, the Christmas walk is a lesson in modern storytelling. The royals do not control every narrative, but they do understand the value of a clear, repeated message, duty, continuity, connection. And the public, whether supportive or skeptical, cannot help but watch, because the story is not only about them, it is about time, family, and the desire to believe that some things can be steady in an unsteady world. So what does this moment ultimately tell us? It tells us that tradition survives when it can feel human. The monarchy is often discussed in terms of power, protocol, and politics, but the Christmas walk pulls it into something more intimate, a family moving through a public space, being watched, judged, admired, criticized, and still walking forward. In that narrow lane between Sandringham House and the church, you can see the tension of modern royalty, the need to remain relevant without becoming entertainment, the need to connect without becoming careless, the need to change without breaking the myth that people depend on. And in the middle of that tension, Lady Louise's quiet growth becomes meaningful. She is not trying to dominate the scene. She is simply present, composed, respectful, steady. That kind of presence can feel rare today. It suggests a different kind of strength, not loudness but consistency. Not spectacle, but dignity. The public does not only notice her because she looks different, they notice her because she looks ready. Ready to carry a small part of the weight that older generations have carried for so long. Ready to represent without performing. Ready to be herself within a role that was never requested, only inherited. The story of Sandringham Christmas is therefore not only about a holiday. It is about how institutions renew themselves through people who grow up inside them. It is about how families protect their young while still preparing them for duty. It is about how a nation, and the wider world, keeps returning to a familiar image because it offers a feeling of order. And maybe that is the real magic of this walk. It is not a fairy tale, but it briefly looks like one, until you remember that every smiling face carries real life behind it. Health concerns, private grief, public expectations, personal dreams. The walk ends, the cameras lower, the crowd disperses, and the family returns to their day. But the image remains. A young woman stepping forward in winter light, the echo of a late queen's tradition, and the promise that the next chapter is already beginning, quietly, steadily, one step at a time.